Okay, so who got up the other night to see the eclipse at 3 a.m.? Okay, you did. Great. More people. Okay. I wasn't certain if I'd be the only person that did. Okay. So I was just so excited about it and enjoying it so much. About 4:30, I thought, Dan's in there sleeping and he's missing this. And I really don't want him to miss this. So I tiptoed in there and said, Dan, you really need to get up. I've got something I want to show you. So he jumps up out of bed like there's an emergency or something. But it was so incredibly beautiful. And the way I guess it's the gases form around the earth and the pink rose glow. As you could see the shadow of the earth on the moon, it's just absolutely indescribable. So the next one, I expect all of you to be up. We're going to have a test. And you can tell us what you saw. Anyway, I was thinking, and people say they don't believe in miracles and all the miraculous things going on around us all the time, and you don't believe in miracles. Incredible. And so, speaking of moons or half moons or whatever you might call it, I was having a conversation with Tony Jaquette here. Stand up, Tony. Let everybody get to know you. He's our musician. After their rehearsal Friday, and so he was laughing and telling me and another person about a place you went to get a haircut several years ago. Well, you were still living in the Keys, I guess. So he spent a career in the Seabees and had all these terrible locations where he was based. I just couldn't believe it. All over the world, all these incredible places. But said he went to get a haircut. He saw a sign, haircut for $10. And he's thinking, well, that's a pretty good deal. I think I'll go try that out. So he goes, and the guy finishes cutting his hair, and he says, okay, that'll be $8. He says, what do you mean $8? The sign says $10. He said, nah, read the sign on the wall. Look down halfway. A donut is $8. I thought that was pretty cool. I told him, you know what, I'll tell you what, he's got a nice looking head. And if that is a blessing. I told him my son-in-law, Al, has, I don't know, and he was still mid-20s. He just got tired of shaving it or getting his hair cut, and he just started shaving his head. And he has shaved his head all these years since. And I don't guess I'd know what he looked like with hair. I guess he still has hair, I don't know. But that's if you've got a nice-shaped head, you can do that, right? What I want to talk about this morning is the incredible benefits of awareness and focus. And I hope that by the time I'm finished today talking, I can convince you to focus on the good and let all these other distractions go. You don't have to pretend they don't exist. Just don't focus on them. Don't put your focus there. There was a story on my computer's feed that showed an old photo of a little girl. Ragged clothing, stringy, unwashed, uncombed hair, standing in front of a trailer with all sorts of trash in the yard. She remarked that this is what breaking a generational curse of drug addiction and poverty looks like. She said if you told that little girl in that photo that she would be living the life that she is now, she wouldn't have believed it because she didn't think it was possible. The woman goes on to say, I wanted so badly to have normal parents and a stable surrounding, but felt like I'd never get out. But she said I did. I got out and I became the stable adult that I needed as a child. She says, I'm making this post to remind any child who has dealt with family addiction, poverty, and lack of guidance that you don't have to live the life you were born into. You can have better. Aim to be the adult you needed and never stop working on that person. And in this post, she showed a photo of the home that she lives in now, and she was so proud of it, in a good, healthy neighborhood, and she was just so proud of where she'd come and what she'd done. And she wanted to remind every little child in the world that they could do that too. She said, first, you must become aware of your worthiness and desire for a better life, and then focus on that. Focus on that. Where we place our attention is where we will dwell, and it could be heaven or it could be hell. It's up to you. Depends on your focus. Harry Potter's fictional world was inspired by a little bit of magic. How many of you have seen all the Harry Potter movies? No? Some of you have, yeah. To make things happen in his fictional world of magic, you need a wand, a Latin-sounding incantation such as Oculus Reparo, to repair broken eyeglasses. Sounds like it would work to me. Or Wingardium Levioso, to levitate objects. I like that. And in the real world of light magic, you need no wand and no Latin dictionary. You need only will and imagination, and to focus those things on what you want instead of what you don't want. I heard about a psychologist who was assigned to work with a young man with a long history of drug addiction. He showed up at Dr. Estelle Parsons' office with a thick dossier of troubles and diagnoses, many of them. As Dr. Parsons began to interview him, he launched into many stories and justifications for all of his addictive behaviors. She did not go there with him. She didn't want to hear it. She said, tell me about what you did this week that was not addictive. All you have to do is tell me one thing. At first, Jack could not think of much during his week unrelated to his addiction. Then gradually, over months of therapy with her, she was able to elicit more and more information about the healthy Jack that was underneath all of those layers of not good enough, can't, won't, not able. At some point, the focus of the session shifted from his ineptitude to aspects of his life that he had indeed mastered. He began to identify his strength and take pride in it. Eventually, he dropped his addiction entirely. Now, there's a miracle for you, isn't it? She was the first therapist who was able to accomplish this transformation with this patient. What we really need to do is step onto higher ground. We do know that Albert Einstein said that you can never solve a problem with the mind that created it. Never. And we know that. Yet we continue focusing on the same old stuff, the same old bad news, as if it's suddenly going to turn good. A Course in Miracles puts it this way: you cannot be your own guide to miracles, for it is you who made them necessary in the first place. Right? Take an affirmation like, I am always doing better than I think I am. That sounds pretty positive, doesn't it? I'm always doing better. There's another example of a person named John. He was a former family business owner and executive coach. He describes a lifelong negative pattern of behavior when he developed a daily habit of gratitude. I used to focus on the specks on the wall, he said, things that I didn't have. Cooler job, bigger house, wanted more, money, power. He says, I was keeping score in a game that didn't add up to what I really valued in my life. What I really valued was my family, close connections with friends, and a job that was aligned with my purpose. He said, I began to notice how often I focused on mostly the negative stuff. I developed a daily habit of gratitude and started keeping a journal. He said, now, when I begin to think about those specks on the wall, I shift to gratitude, and it completely changes my day. He said, my best move, though, is to extend the feeling of gratitude and savor these moments by closing my eyes and taking a deep breath. It has changed my life. I've often spoken here about how you can change any circumstance in your life by just changing your mind about it. You may even get to the point where you want to choose the longest line at the bank, the grocery, because you get those few moments to relax, go within, remember who you are, and the peace and light that you want to bring to the world. I know that when I was still in the corporate world many years ago now, that I was thinking about, and I'm sure it still happens now, how one harried person after the other would come into a meeting from their particular department. Maybe they're going to come into a company meeting, and they've just left the last meeting, and they probably weren't present at that meeting either. You know what I mean? The more I thought about it, I thought, okay, you're rushing in here, you're not prepared for whatever reason, and usually it is because there's not enough time in the world to be prepared for many of these jobs. The expectations for time and ability are set way too high sometimes. We're trying to do too much. So you come into a meeting, you're sitting around, you look at 10 other people in the room, and they're just as stressed as you are. They just came from an engineering meeting where they didn't even get to complete what they were doing because they had to come to this meeting. And they're not prepared. They're looking at their watch, wondering when this one's going to be over because they have one coming up next. How in the world can you focus on anything important if that's the way you're carrying on your life? I don't care who you are, what corporate responsibilities you have, or other responsibilities you have in this life. You have got to find a way to carve out some time to focus on God, good, the source, love, the Christ consciousness, whatever we want to call it. Focus on the good. Remember who you are and who sent you. And if you're running so fast, whether it's in a vehicle or wherever, you're not ever going to catch up. You're just going to go from one thing to the other, and you're not going to do a good job of any of them because you're not focused. I was thinking the other day, too, about how when we sit down at the computer and we begin to be distracted, and we might have sat down to search for something. The next thing you know, you have how many tabs open? 10, 12. Can't even remember what you started the search for, can you? It's sort of the 21st century version of going to find something in another room, and 3 hours later you're doing something else and come back and can't remember what it was you went for to begin with. What you focus on expands. I want you to imagine this for a moment. Imagine you had a garden. And imagine every time you paid attention to one of the plants, it received nourishment, water, plenty of sunshine. And if you focus your attention on your fruits and vegetables, they would ripen into a golden harvest. Isn't that beautiful? What beautiful imagery. If you focused on the weeds, they would grow just as easily. Did you know that? You know that weeds can grow and prosper just like flowers, right? We know that. By your focus alone, you would determine what would grow in your garden. What do you want in your garden? Just for a moment, imagine focusing on your tomato plants and watching them ripen into beautiful, ripening fruit. Imagine that. Then for a second, imagine the weeds, watch them grow. Now stop. Okay? And that's how you do it. Stop on the weeds. Because you see, in our normal everyday lives, we are human, and we do have these human thoughts. And we do know that there are roses and there are weeds. And the more you focus on the roses, the more light, love, and miracles you're going to bring into your life. So quickly, when you find yourself focusing on those weeds, okay, quickly bring your focus back to the other plants and watch them grow again. God's garden, Watch them grow healthfully. What pleases you more? What makes you happier? What makes you more joyful than watching your own plants thrive and grow? Focus on those. Focus. You see, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about awareness today too was that if you're not aware, you got to first be aware, right? You got to first wake up. Hey, that thought, that's not really positive and that's not helping me. You've got to be aware of that or you will not want to change it. So be aware of it. That's not helpful. That's just making, let's say you have something that's made you angry, you just read or you saw on the news. The more you focus on it, the angrier you're going to become. That's not going to be helpful to anybody. You might just say a quick prayer, God, show me if this is mine to do. Show me how. Is there a small part I can do there? So let's focus on the positive. We're not pretending it doesn't exist in the world. We're not pretending weeds don't exist. We're just not going to focus on them because we're not going to help them grow. So watch where you place your focus. So as you shift back, when you've noticed those weeds, just shift quickly back. You can do it. We all know the answers. We all know them. We know how to choke off those weeds. We just don't do it. So if you think of your world as this garden, there are people, ideas, beliefs, situations that produce wonderful fruit for your life. There are countless ways that the world is offering you things that delight. There are people doing wonderful things in the world every moment, every day. Kind souls quietly smiling at strangers in the store. There are delivery angels who bring things you need to your doorsteps. There are angels working in the hospitals, helping us to heal. We're grateful for them. There are people helping the environment, working on well-being, inspiring others, creating cars that will work in harmony with the universe. There are birds singing, trees blooming, grass growing, ocean waves rising up and falling back. There's your heart beating, your lungs breathing, the stars rising, the sun setting, innumerable pleasures and delights. Focus on those. Bring your awareness to those. Leave the misery behind. Just like the woman that saw the photo of herself in front of that dilapidated trailer. Broken down home, broken down family. Somewhere along the line, she focused on something better, and she knew that she deserved it. There are countless things we can focus on, and I cannot say this often enough. What you focus upon, you empower. Choose your focus carefully. You could heal the sick if you could focus your light more strongly. You can heal yourselves if you focus on this light within more strongly than what ails you. Focus on the good. Focus on healing. See only that. You're like a divine gardener. Here's what you can do to stay in the world. Lightly acknowledge the world's pains and problems, because they are, of course, part of the previously manifested reality in front of you. But then just as swiftly shift your attention to what you want to grow in the world. What would you want that to be? Can you notice all the turmoil in the world but choose to be at peace in your own life and your own heart? Can you notice the people judging you, perhaps, and stop watering their weeds by turning the other cheek? Here's what Jesus meant by that. And this is what I meant by calling unity practical Christianity. We look for the symbolism and what he was trying to teach. He taught in stories and symbols. He said, turn the other cheek. What did he mean by that? He meant turn your attention elsewhere. Don't focus on that. Focus on something else. That's exactly what he meant by that. Focus elsewhere. Turn the other cheek. You can either focus on kinder words, or if the ones judging you are an important part of your life, you might focus on the love beneath their fears. And just as gently, ask them to change their words to you, to be filled with love and light instead of fear. You can say, I love that you care for me. I love that. I love that you care for me so much, and I know you love me and want me to be happy and well. I love you for that. But let's not talk about this subject, okay? You can lovingly get out of any conversation that's negative and does not feed your soul. Turn the other cheek. Turn your attention elsewhere. From the fearful to the good, to the positive, to the loving, to that which you want to nurture in your life. You'd be amazed, my dear friends, when you stop watering the weeds with angry attention and instead water the fruits of love with your attention to love, things can shift very quickly. Don't water the weeds with your focus. Focus on the beautiful. Focus on love. Be aware of where your attention is going. Decide to change it if you need to. And focus on the good. I hope if there are any specks on your wall this week, as there were with our friend John, that they'll be good ones. Focus on the good ones. Have a good week and a good life. Thank you for your time.